Thank you all for joining today and signing up. Michael and I are really excited to be able to share with you guys Quorum software solutions for reporting needs, specifically around division orders. And just some brief introductions for Michael and myself. My name is Kevin McArthur. I work within our solutions group here at Quorum Software. I've been at the company for over 6.5 years now, working in a lot of different roles. When I came into the company, I actually started in our development group, more on the technical side. I worked in support for a little bit, but most of my time has been spent within our professional services organization, where I've led and managed numerous upstream projects for oil and gas producers. And really my area of expertise has revolved around the upstream accounting and division order applications, specifically around the revenue accounting solution. So really excited to be presenting to you today, and I'll let Michael go ahead and introduce himself.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Burton. I've been working in the upstream oil and gas industry for the entirety of my career. I first started working out in industry with BHP Billiton within their land administration, where I was exposed to the complete life cycle of the land department. Ultimately ended up within their division order department. And then in 2017, I transitioned to Quorum within their professional services group, which I've spent my entire time within that group. Most notably, I was served as the lead division order role for both the Apache and Marathon web application implementations. Both of those took about 3 years to complete. Some of you guys might recognize me if you attended the previous NADOA conference in Fort Worth, as I was there manning the Quorum booth with my colleagues Joby, Abraham, and Ben Ritchie. And pretty excited to show you the web application in the Classic, and hopefully you guys can learn a thing or two.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael. Just to cover the agenda that we plan to show you guys, we have 3 topics that we want to cover. The first one is going to be finding your data within the system. So just giving you insight and some tips on how to access that information efficiently. Then we want to get into some of the Quorum division order system reports. So these are the canned reports that you can generate out of the system real time. And then we'll finish it off by talking about utilizing Quorum Query Module, which is also known as QQM. I might refer to it as that going forward. But this is just our ad hoc reporting tool, where you can build ad hoc reports that are really important to you and customize those to your liking. And just like Heather mentioned, if you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to submit those through the chat window. We do have a lot of material to cover, but we do want to leave some time at the end for Q&A, so we'll try to get to those. And then also, like Heather mentioned, if we don't have time, if you include that email address, Michael or myself will definitely reach out to you after and answer anything that we didn't get to during this session. For the overall objectives, we want to show you tips for accessing your information. Based on the poll, it's looking like there's a little bit less than 50% of you guys who are actually using Quorum today. So hopefully we're going to focus on our application, but some of the principles that we'll talk about today hopefully will apply to you, where you can take it and apply it to the system that you're currently using. So accessing information for commonly requested data. We want to show you some useful system reports where you can pull useful information that you can provide across your organization or to individual owners or partners to fulfill those reporting requirements. And then at the end, like I mentioned, we want to show you some benefits of ad hoc reporting, understanding how ad hoc reporting can be a really useful tool to get the information out of the system in a meaningful way. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it to Michael to kick us off with the first topic.
So yeah, in this first section, Kevin and I will be covering some simple tips and tricks that will facilitate your ability to access and manipulate ownership data within QDO. Some of the common types of information that a typical user might need to find quickly are owner contact information, owner check history, owner DFI detail information, owner funds, DFI history, and new setup and maintenance group transactions performed within the My QDO system. So There are three main avenues of accessing the main screens used within your daily business. First, some screens can be launched from the dashboard widgets you see before you. Selecting either the owner search or DFI search radial at the top of this first widget will change the search criteria from BA number and check number to DFI information. Filling in the appropriate information and clicking search will send you directly to either the standalone search, owner search or DFI search screens, depending on which radial you selected, of course. The next screen that can be launched from the dashboard is the DFI setup screen, which can be found highlighted in the blue below the new business widget. Selecting this link will send you directly to the DFI setup screen, where you can begin to build out new DFI or search for an existing DFI record. The last screen that can be launched from the dashboard is the DFI maintenance screen. Selecting this link will send the user directly to the maintenance group creation screen, where you can begin performing maintenance. The intent of these quick links is to give the user different avenues to launching the screens you use daily. Since searching for owners or DFIs, creating new DFIs, and performing maintenance are such pivotal actions users typically perform in their day-to-day lives, we wanted these screens to be easily accessible. Another alternative way that you can access the main QDO screens is via the standardized menu. In this screenshot, we're showing off the different screen options under the DO module. So by selecting the three horizontal lines in the top left corner and then selecting the DO module, the menu is displayed, allowing you to view all the screens available to the DO module. This would behave similarly to both the QRA and eSuite modules and is very similar to how we represent it within the classic application. The third way a user can access the screen is by utilizing the quorum search icon in the top right corner of the web application. Selecting the Q magnifying glass will open up a free-form text prompt that a user can use to search for a screen. As a user types in letters, the search bar will pull up options that match. Also, for users that typically use keyboard shortcuts, clicking Control+Q on your keyboard will automatically pull up the search prompt from the dashboard. So what you see before you is the upstream dashboard from the MyQDO web application. Every time you log into the system, users are greeted with the dashboard and widgets you see before you. These are intended to make your life easier and improve your efficiency. The owner DFI search widget allows quick access to the owner and DFI search screens that I'll be going over here in a minute. New business widget is broken up into two different screens that pull back data from the past 30 days. The pending DFIs, which represents the DFIs that have been created but not approved across your organization in the past 30 days. So you can go to the next. Notice here, the additional actions within this widget are calculate the GWI or view the DFI. Selecting the view option sends you directly to the DFI setup screen for that DFI record. And then the next widget, you can see the approved DFIs. These are DFIs that have been approved in your organization within the last 30 days. Here, we can also see the two actions available to you within the widget. You can either notify revenue or select the view option again. Next, the maintenance widget is broken up into three different screens. The recent maintenance completed and approved where transactions included suspended funds, which the actions here are either view the maintenance group, view the exhibit with which I will be covering later on in this presentation, and change pay code. And then there's recent maintenance completed and approved where transactions did not include suspended funds. Similarly to the previous actions, you can either view the maintenance group, view the exhibit, or change pay code. And then finally, the pending maintenance. Work in progress maintenance groups that have not been completed. The actions we can see here are either view the maintenance group, add additional transactions to that maintenance group, or run the approval process. Each one of these widgets have a unique use that were designed to display a high-level snapshot of what was performed in the different facets of the system, while giving you an option to delve deeper into those record sets. We designed these widgets to allow you to view the metrics of your business, review your users' new setups and maintenance from a high level, or go deeper into the new setups and maintenance to audit the details. First, I'll be covering the owner search screen. In our upstream web application, we now have a series of standalone search screens that are intended to facilitate users with their ownership research. This goes just beyond just facilitating ownership inquiries. These same search screens can be used to help set up new wells or DFIs. The screenshot you see above is just one example of our owner search screen. Notice how there are multiple tabs within the grid that are tailored to pull back different levels of data for a specific owner. there are tabs for the business associate, the device Sue Smith has an interest in, the funds associated with Sue Smith, and Sue Smith's check history. In this first series of screenshots, we see the grid populated above is that of the business associate level. You can also see an action column along the left-hand side of the grid, which, if clicked, will take you to the business associate screen for Sue Smith, allowing you to delve deeper into the metadata of the business associate or make updates to that BA. This type of interaction allows you to move to other screens with the click of a button, facilitating a streamlined approach of gathering your data quickly. In the next tab, I'll be covering the DFIs. Here, you can see all the DFIs Sue Smith has an interest in, along with a high-level snapshot of the metadata of those ownership sequences. This type of search could be used to filter downward to all the DFIs the owner is in suspense for, etc., such as unsatisfied title, address unknown, whatever you have configured in your system. The links icon within the action column will take you directly to the DFI setup screen for that row, allowing you to see the DFI details. In this third screenshot, we can see the funds that are associated with the owner by detailing all their interest sequences and the amounts tied to those lines of interest. Having a fully integrated QDO and QRA system can help create a one-stop shop for viewing these funds. This limits the need to going outside your upstream DO system to your accounting subledgers to pull the data. Most of the time, you need access to multiple subledgers accounting screens to pull the data you are looking for, especially if an owner is asking how much money is going to be in their next check. This fourth screenshot pulls back the check history for Sue Smith. This screen depicts the issue date, check number, amount, and status. Having access to view this historical data will allow for quick and easy responses to the owner. When dealing with owners firing questions at you, it is easiest when you can quickly familiarize yourself with the screen and data to see the big picture so you can convey the information they're requesting in a concise manner. Most of our screens have different additional actions that can help you navigate to a more granular data within different screens without having to navigate the menu and input the data criteria. Next, I'm going to be going over the DFI history search. Our standalone chain of title search screen allows you to retrieve all the maintenance completed within the system. This screen is designed with the intent of retrieving all history details at once, but by utilizing the header and column filters, can help pinpoint exactly what you're looking for more quickly. Like most grids in MyQDO, users have the ability to export the grid data to Excel and show hide columns to cater to each individual style of reviewing data. Moving columns around with a mouse click and drag makes for ease of access as well. Utilizing these functions will greatly improve your ability to search and view data within the system, as it is our intent to allow the user to create a custom tailored view of the data which can simply be reset if you want to restore to defaults. Next, within MyQDO, users have a number of ways to manipulate grid data. Records can be manually added, deleted, or edited by row via the main grid. But say, for instance, you need to update multiple records without having to do it by row. Utilizing the bulk view edit screen is a great way to touch multiple rows at once within the grid. We designed it to mimic making changes similar to what you would find in an Excel spreadsheet. You can click and drag, highlight multiple rows to delete or make the changes, etc. This action can be found on a number of different screens, such as the DFI detail records and unit to track participation setup. Similarly to the classic application, MyQDO's streamlined approach of extracting data from our web grids is a one-step process. Whether your approach is to research, respond to an ownership inquiry, conduct a cleanup project, or simply manipulate data on a large scale, MyQDO's intuitive process of extracting data to Excel is an easy way of pulling targeted data out of the system. First, we will demonstrate this function within the DFI setup screen. To utilize the export to Excel action, first select the cogwheel on the left-hand side of the grid, highlight the actions, and then select Export to Excel. In doing so, an Excel file will download within your browser. Select the file and review your data. Next, we can see the unit to track participation screen. Here, we can extract the full data set or for a targeted unit, make changes, and upload those changes for quick and easy updates. In our last set of screenshots, we can see the DFI search screen here again. Here, we can filter on the targeted data we need to pull back, click the row, and then extract the header details and/or owner level details based on a particular inquiry date. A good rule of thumb is that the export to Excel action is available wherever a grid is used within the MyQDO application. So if you need to import data into the MyQDO, I'm going to be going over the next steps for that. Similarly to our export process, our import process is just as effortless and seamless and should be used anytime a user wants to limit manual entry. If you're more comfortable working within Excel, using this option is the preferred method to getting data entered within the system. Utilizing the import process to either replace or add information can facilitate mass row replacements and changes in a few short steps. First, select the cogwheel, highlight the Actions option, and then select Import from Excel. Next, you have the option to replace the entirety of the grid data or add to it. Finally, select the file from your computer and then hit Close. In the next screenshot, you can notice that we selected the Replace option. Please note that the icon indicators on the left-hand side of the screen designating whether the spreadsheet is updating an existing row or deleting it. This is a useful indication to show the changes you are about to make so that if you need to reset, then you can close out of the screen without committing the changes and restart from scratch. The import process is available on a multitude of screens, such as the ownership details, unit to tracked, participation, and owner lease cross-reference, to name a few.
All right, perfect. So thank you, Michael. So he kind of went through the My Quorum platform. We also still have the classic desktop GUI version of the application. So I'm going to run through some similar concepts that he just spoke about just within our classic view of the application. So really what I wanted to start is at our owner relations query screen. So this really works similar to those DOI and owner search screens that Michael just spoke about within the web application. And so here, this is where I'm going to highlight. This is a one-stop shop where you can find data throughout the system and query back targeted information. And I really want to talk about the ownership, check register, and suspense payable. Those are similar topics to what we saw on the web application. So this is where, if you have an owner, say Jane Doe, call in or send you an email asking you questions about her ownership across all of her DOIs, questions about her checks, or maybe she missed the check last month. This screen can be the starting point for you to find that information quickly. So here, if we look, we had the ownership category selected. All we would need to do is input the BA number for Jane Doe, and that can be selected from the pick list. And then at that point, once we have the BA number, we can click the links option at the top of the screen and open up the ownership screen from the list menu. And that takes us directly to our DOI query screen, where it's already pre-filtered based off of what we looked at on the previous screen. So I get a full list of all the divisions of interest that Jane Doe has ownership in. And from here, I'm able to, export this list to Excel, see, her pay codes, her net revenue interest. I can get whatever information I need to answer whatever questions she brought in. Similarly, if she's really asking a question about one of her checks that she received, we can toggle to the check register category. And then same thing, we're going to still use her BA number to filter the results. Click the links. Now instead of the DOI or ownership option, we have our check register, where if we select this, it'll take us to our check register screen within the classic application. And this gives us a list of all of the checks that she has been paid through the Quorum solution. So we can see she has 3 checks here. We have the header information in this top grid. We can see all of her details down here. But a really nice feature is if she has a specific question about her check detail form that she received, you can go ahead and double click one of these lines on the top grid, which will go ahead and launch our check form directly from that screen itself. So then you'll get a PDF report of the Quorum check form. You have all of her details here. You can then go through and answer any questions that Jane has about her check. And then finally, maybe Jane Doe called in and she's expected to get a check last month, but she didn't. And so now you need to go check, her suspense records, her payable records to make sure, what happened, or figure out what happened with her transactions. So we'll search for her name, we'll use the links option, and now we'll navigate to our subledger detail query screen, which is the same source as what Michael showed in the web version. And what we do here is we're going to go ahead and filter for that owner number automatically, but then we're going to be pulling in two different subledgers. So we have our O1, which is the owner payable subledger, where any transactions for an owner who's in pay, that's where their funds will post to during the revenue transaction. And then we have our O4 subledger, which is the suspense subledger, so we can view any funds that are in pay as well as in suspense directly from this screen. And we can see here that Jane Doe does have some records in pay. She also has some in suspense, but we can use this screen to figure out what happened and why she didn't receive a check the previous month. And same type of functions. If you want to get this out into Excel to do additional analysis, you can just right-click in this top corner of the grid. We have a copy with header option where you just take all the information that's highlighted on the grid, paste it directly into Excel, or we have the export options here, which will let you just export it directly into an Excel format that then can open up, and you'll have the Excel version of the report. You can do the analysis, and maybe you find out that Jane didn't meet the company threshold for the minimum check amount, and that's why she didn't receive her payment last month. But that leads us into our next topic, where we're actually going to drill into the system reports that you can create. And so this is where we have all of these predefined reports that you can run right when you get the system. There's quite a few of them. We're really going to hone in on about 6 or 7 of these reports and then jump into ad hoc reporting. But we have all of these pre-built for you. So if you do have the solution, I highly recommend going in, reviewing these, seeing which ones might be useful for you. Before we go through the reports, though, I'm going to kick it back over to Michael to talk about some tips and tricks for the My Quorum portion of launching the reports.
Thanks, Kevin. So similar to the classic application, the MyQDO web application has its own standalone report launcher screen, as you can see before you. There are a couple things I'd like to point out here that might make your day-to-day activities easier if you're using the web-based application. Please notice in the top right, the search bar in the top right corner of the screen. This can be used to query for a certain report you're searching for. Since the upstream application has a multitude of reports across the different modules, it can be sometimes hard to remember which report belongs to which module. Utilizing the search bar can help pinpoint the exact report you're needing to execute. A useful tip to note also here is that there are a few reports, if there are a few reports you run regularly, adding them to your favorites will allow you to easily access and execute them with a predetermined set of parameters. The recents report section is also useful to show the last reports you ran in the last 30 days. Selecting a report here will open the parameter screen, allowing you to rerun them with the same or different parameters. Next, you can see the category section highlighted here. This will show the category name and the number of reports you have access to within that category. A good tip here is if you know the type of report you want to run, but not necessarily its name, you can select the category and then pan through the pages, searching for the type of report you're looking for. This is similar to the classic applications drop-down menu option. Next, I want to cover how to execute a report and how to add a report to your favorites. The button on the left, the first button, pulls up the parameter screen, allowing you to execute that report. Selecting the button on the right will pull up the favorites parameters. If you want to go to the next screen, notice at the top here, you're going to input all your favorite report name data. And then below, you can run by previous run report or parameters, defaults, cancel this action, or add that to your favorites. If you select add, it'll go to back, and if you go to the main report launcher screen, you'll see that it's added to your favorite section there. And next, Kevin will be going over the 3 sections report.
Awesome. So yeah, now we're going to talk about some of the specific reports. I'm going to provide a few tips and tricks just around the classic report launcher as well as we go through this one. So the 3 sections report is a really useful report that provides a lot of information about your particular division of interest that you're running for. So it's going to have all of your ownership details broken out by the different interest types. We also supply a second section that has just royalty information, and then we provide all the bearer group details. So this could be a useful report if someone has a question within the organization about a specific division of interest, or maybe one of your working interest partners is asking about the division of interest, so you can supply this to them to answer any questions they have. However, some of the report parameters here, if I want to run this for multiple properties, not just one, some of our parameters allow multiple values. So if we look here on the parameter input, you can toggle between the single value and multiple values. And if you select that multiple values, then you can put in a list of properties. So I'm not having to execute this 3 times for each individual property. I'm able to go ahead and put in a list separated by a semicolon and generate one report that has all the divisions of interest in it for me. And if I'm going through and making some of these complex parameter lists, and this is something I'm going to do frequently, I'm not going to want to have to type this in every single time. So similar to what we saw on the website, we let you put in saved parameters. And so in this box, you can do these globally or locally. So if you want to make it available to everyone across your organization who has access to the report launcher, you can save the parameters as a global, or you can use the local option where it'll just be accessible to your user ID. But basically, if I have these 3 wells, they're my only wells in Brazos County, I'm going to generate this report, on a monthly basis. Then I can go ahead and type in the name that I want to save my parameter list and go ahead and click that save button. And what that does is it adds that to my drop-down list. So whenever I come in to run my 3 sections report, I'll be able to pre-populate the parameters with that Brazos County information. So just a nice tip to make sure that your parameters are there and you're not having to re-enter them every single time. But to give you guys an idea of what that report looks like, the first section, like I said, is going to give you the full look of your division of interest. So as we see here, we have our Maverick 14 property, and we have all of our interest information down here below. So we have all of our royalty interest owners showing up first with their net revenue interest, their corresponding pay code. So within our system, 1 is the pay status, 2 is the suspense status. And then we also show the bear groups. So we can see that there's multiple bear groups associated to this division of interest, and we can see who is assigned to each one of those. And then down below, we'll have our working interest owners. So we have 1 other partner on this deck. We can see their net revenue interest, but importantly, we also have the GWI decimal. So if you are providing this to a partner, that's an important decimal that they wouldn't want to necessarily calculate themselves. So that's a nice feature on this report. The second section is just showing you the royalty or non-working interest portion. So we just have that list of royalty owners again, showing their pay codes and bearer group assignments. And then that third section is giving us that bearer group detail. So we can see, based on the first slide, that we had 2 bearer groups. So we can see group 1 and group 2 here. We then get the details behind each group. So we can see that both of our working interest owners are on this particular bearer group, where partner 1 is taking on 1/3 of the burden, and our internal company is taking on 2/3. However, in group 2, we have our internal company who's taking on all of the burden. So anyone who's assigned to this group will fully burden our internal company. Next, we have our division order mailing labels. This one's just a really nice report if you are mailing out letters and you want to get those mailing labels created easily. You can come in, input your property number, and then this is going to generate your mailing labels, which will have your name and address information printed out in a report like this that you can add to your envelopes to mail out to your owners. This next report is our owner property list. So this one kind of goes hand in hand with the owner inquiry scenario that we walked through with Jane Doe. So if she's calling in and she wants to know what property she has ownership on, what the latest position is on that division of interest, we can actually go ahead and run this owner property list where you can select the business associate, and this report's going to bring back the full list of divisions of interest that they have ownership in. And we also provide you with additional parameters. So if you wanted to run this, for a specific state, you have that ability. But we can go ahead and run this one wide open. And then it gives us this nice grid view of all of Jane Doe's ownership. So we have the property information. We even have the location of the well, so the county and state that this one exists, as well as the net revenue interest, her interest type, the pay code. So we can see that she's suspended on some properties. And then, of course, her effective date on this division of interest. So this is a nice report where you could just run this, print it out, email it to her, and then she can get all of the information that she needs. Also, since this is a grid-based view, there's not really any formatting going on. This is one that really translates nicely into Excel. So you can always run, instead of the PDF, you can run the Excel version from the report launcher. Then we have our Exhibit A report. So as you're completing DO maintenance, doing transfers, things are changing. We have the ability to generate our Exhibit A. And that's really going to be based off of the transaction sequence number. And this ties back directly to the DO maintenance that's happening within the system. So your interest transfers, pay code changes, things of that nature. And that's easy to find. Michael showed you the DOI history screen in the web version earlier in the slides. This is the version in the classic application. And every time you complete an interest transfer or DO maintenance, we're tagging that transaction with its transaction number. And then you can use this to generate your Exhibit A report. And so that generates the report, has all of the owner information and the decimals that can be mailed out to that particular owner. And I'll go ahead, I'm gonna stop for a second and send it back to Michael to talk about some features in the web for the Exhibit A.
Thanks, Kevin. So one of the most exciting features that can be performed from the dashboard that many users might not know about is that you can run the transfer order report directly from the maintenance widget. So this means that users do not need to navigate directly to the report launcher from the menu to launch this report if the maintenance group was performed in the last 30 days. So once you've completed your maintenance, navigate to the dashboard, select with or without funds link to open the appropriate widget screen. Like I explained previously in the presentation, we separate out these two transaction types depending on if you selected the with or without suspense option in your maintenance group. After selecting the appropriate widget link, search for your maintenance group number, highlight the row, and then click on the Actions button on the far left side. Selecting the Actions button opens up 3 actions. Select the View Exhibit option. Selecting this automatically launches the Exhibit A report with the specified parameters of your maintenance group. Once the report process is complete, the PDF version of your report will pop up. Of course, this step is dependent on the web browser you're using, and Quorum recommends to use Chrome. And then select the file and review the report.
Perfect. And so the last 3 reports that we wanted to highlight today that can be run from the system are the audit reports for DOI history. So, these are good reports for you to go back and review any transactions that happened over a period of time. And so we have these broken out by the different types of maintenance. So we'll have our OE changes, which correlate to the owner exceptions changes. So things like marketing exemptions getting added to and from an owner. But when you come into this report, you can select the owner exemptions changes report. And then the main parameter you want to focus on is the audit start date. So this tells the system how far back to go and which transactions to pull into the report. And once this is executed, we'll have the property and owner information over here on the left-hand side. And then we'll have a lot of the different attributes related to owner exceptions changes, where we have the old values and then the new values. So for these particular owners and transactions, we can see they didn't have any marketing exemptions prior to the DO maintenance that occurred. but now their new marketing exemptions are assigned. So now they'll be exempt from, any costs that are tagged to the 01 and 07 marketing exemption code. The other nice feature here is that we have our user ID, which correlates to the create user, and then we'll have the approval ID so we know who approved it. In our environment here, we have relaxed security, so we have people who are approving their own transactions. However, if you do have the systems in place and the controls in place where you can approve your own transactions, or you have delineation of power where some people have approval rights and others don't, that's where you would see, your create user being different from the approval user. And then similarly, we have our pay code change report. So same parameter, we can pull in transactions going back to a particular date. And this is going to have that property and owner information. And now we're just bringing in things related to pay code changes. So this is where we can see pay code changes from, a suspense status here to a pay. And then we also have that create user and approval user so that we know we can keep that audit trail. And then the last one that I wanted to bring up here is our interest transfers. So we're breaking these out again by the different types. So this will correlate to the actual transfers of interests that have occurred within the system. So we had that property information. It's just now on this report, we're going to include from owner and to owner information. So we can see, owner 1262 had a 10% interest, and they're transferring 5% of that to a new owner. And if we look at it down here too, he's keeping the other 5%. And then we have, some helpful indicators around the transfer reason description, as well as that audit trail of who created it and ultimately who approved it. And again, that ends the system reports that we wanted to highlight today. If we go back to the slide at the beginning of that section, we have a lot of different reports that you can run. So, I highly recommend if you are using Quorum today, reviewing that list, trying to run some reports. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But there's some reports that provide useful information. And now we'll move into utilizing Quorum Query Module, otherwise known as QQM. This is our ad hoc reporting tool. And so, there's some real benefits to being able to have these ad hoc reports. So QQM is a powerful tool. It's going to allow you to pull information out of the system in a flexible manner. And so you can pull specific fields that are important to you. You have the ability to use dynamic filtering, so you can pull back targeted data. And then, as you get more comfortable with QQM, and it is a powerful tool, you can start adding in advanced functions such as grouping, summarizing, and graphing to really provide advanced analytics. And then another nice feature is that if there's a report that you want to run on a set interval, you can actually have that set up to run and email out to yourself or a group of people, so that's not something you have to go in and run every single time. And QQM is something that I could probably talk about for hours, but really for the purpose of this meeting, I just want to look at a few simple examples where I went in and I created these reports in the matter of 2 minutes to 10 minutes, and just give me the base start to build out additional reports. So we'll take a look at an owner inquiry report where it's really just pulling in name and address information. I also built out a suspense aging report. I know in my environment, I have some really old suspense data, so I want to make sure that I'm handling that correctly. And then I know we looked at the system reports for the DO history changes, but all of that information is available within the QQM universe for ad hoc reporting, where I could easily build out, one report that pulls in all that information. I can pull in different attributes that make sense to me. So I just wanted to highlight that, that's a really easy report that you can build out. And so if you aren't using QQM today, if you haven't, or if you are using it, but you're not really building out the reports, really QQM is built on top of SAP business objects. And so it's just a tool that lays on top of the database where we put in what we call universes for the different modules. And what that does is we do all of this backend logic to tie different data tables together, and do all of that technical querying and all of that, so that really the end user can come in, look at database fields in a descriptive manner that makes sense to you. You're not seeing database file names or things like that, but you're seeing useful names that you can pull directly onto a report that will build the query in the back end, without you having to know, database language or things like that. So in this report, I'm in my division order module. This is linked directly to the DO database. It's going to report real time. This is where I've simply pulled in my BA information. I have access to my address information, contacts, whatever I want to pull into this report. And so I can pull in my BA number and name, my address information. I'm also going to pull in my usage code because I want to use this. I only want to pull back non-working interest owners. So I've used the usage code to limit that in my query filters. So then when I execute this report, it's going to pull in all the columns that we looked at on the previous screen. And now it's pulling that information in for me. And I've filtered where I'm only going to see non-working interest owners on this report. So this one's fairly basic. I could expand upon this further, adding in tax ID information, or maybe making it where it's a report where I'm looking for owners that don't have a tax ID and need to be withheld. So there's just a lot of different things I can do from this easy basic report to get information that's going to be relevant to my day-to-day job. And then similarly, the suspense aging report. So this one is going to pull from a separate universe. So this is actually pulling from our QRA journal entry universe, or the quorum revenue accounting, since that's where all of those transactions occur and are recorded. So here I'm just going to be pulling from my subledger detail. This correlates directly to the screen that we looked at within the application, that showed all of the outstanding suspense and payable information. And so this is where I can input the subledger that I want to look at. I only want to pull in results for my suspense subledger. So that's where I pulled in the 04 suspense subledger. And then I have my BA information that I want to capture. And if I'm using this for unclaimed property reasons, I'm going to go ahead and pull in that BA state code so I can see exactly which states, have the most outstanding suspense transactions. And then I'll pull in things like my transaction amount and production date. And so this gives me insight into suspense that's been out on my subledger for a long period of time. I can see William and Dolores have a lot of transactions in this environment, really old production dates tied to it. And something easy that I put in here is just another column to help me read this report, is just a field that shows me how many years have gone by since, since the production date for this particular report. So the way to do that is just adding in a variable where it might look complicated, but really it's a simple equation where it's just using a function that's available within business objects, where I'm just getting the time between the production date and the first date of the current month where I'm running the report. And it's going to spit out a year difference between those values. So I can see, I have suspense out there that's 12 years old. That's probably something I need to go review and take a closer look at. I also have the ability to add a second report from the same information. So I wanted to just get a summarized result by state for old suspense, anything that's older than 3 years. And so here I can see for all of my different state codes, the summarized outstanding suspense amounts. And so I can use this to say, Texas and Colorado really have a large dollar amount of suspense transactions that are older than 3 years, probably something that I need to go evaluate. And then just last one real quick, the DUI change history report, we have those system reports, but if you want to pull in more attributes, pull them into one report, all of that information is available within the DO universe, where it's under the DOI transfer history folder. This has all the attributes about the property, the from owner, the to owner, all of the different attributes such as NRI decimals, pay codes, whatever you would want to include on your report. Here I've just built out a high level report that shows my property that I'm done the transaction for, my from owner, my new owner, and then really importantly, I wanted to see the creation date, which correlates to the update date and update user, and who approved it and what date they approved it. And I'm going to use this to review transactions in the system. So I've added some filters here where I want to see all the transactions that Michael has completed in this environment going back to the last year. So I'm pulling in anything greater than 7/1/2019. And just running this report shows me, okay, Michael's completed 9 different transfers. I can see the properties he's touched. I get to see when he actually created these transactions, and then ultimately who approved them and on what date they were approved. And just, you know, this is something that can be built out very easily, expanded upon, and something that took a very little time to put together. So creating these ad hoc reports is something that's important and can really add value and efficiencies to your day-to-day activities.